Hello and welcome to the Say It Sister podcast. I'm Lucy and
I'm Karen, and we're thrilled to have you here. Our paths crossed years ago on a shared journey of self-discovery, and what we found was an unshakable bond and a mutual desire to help others heal and live their very best lives.
For years we've had open, honest and courageous conversations, discussions that challenged us, lifted us and sometimes even brought us to tears. Now we want to share those conversations with you. We believe that by letting you into our world, you might find the courage to use your voice and say what really needs to be said in your own life.
Whether you're a woman seeking empowerment, a self-improvement enthusiast, or someone who craves thought-provoking dialogue, join us as we promise to bring you real, unfiltered conversations that encourage self-reflection and growth.
So join us as we explore, question and grow together. It's time to say it, sister. Hey, sisters. Welcome back to another brilliant episode of Say It, Sister. Now, Karen and I are in the midst of launching and talking about Wise Women Lead, our new leadership development program. And we're going to talk today about some of those elements that we go into in our program. And we're going to be talking about the aspects of feminine strength that really do act as an antidote in today's culture. And firstly, we're going to be talking about rest and recovery. And, in the patriarchal system where work and push and drive and always being on, becomes the norm, this hustle culture. And anything to do with rest and recover is almost sort of aligned with laziness or even being a wimp and not committed enough. And, that whole eat, sleep, work, repeat, it's so unhealthy. We know it in our bones. So we're here to offer, I guess, that antidote, and we're going to explore that a little bit. We're also going to explore other parts of this balance, where in a cycle of constant information, these dopamine hits, instant gratification, there's something missing because we're just jumping from one thing to another, and we're not actually able to give ourselves space just to process, almost like just switch off and just process all of that we're listening to, we're absorbing, that's coming into our sphere, and just saying, is this useful to me? Is this what we need right now? And we're going to touch on the power of collaboration, which is another anti-patriarchal strength that we've got. And what we're seeing really now, and you must see it too, listeners, it's that personal drive, that personal success, which is actually quite lonely. And once you've got that success, there's no one really there to share it with, because it's all about competing against your peers, the competition, the next, client. And, it's just this frenzy. And it also really, really nurtures and grows that comparison, which is so unhealthy for all of us. So we're going to explore that feminine leadership, what it looks like in practice, how collaboration and partnership can really, really amplify our lives, resting and recovery. And it brought me to thinking about my own childhood growing up. And I came from a family where we were up early. And, if you had a lie-in, especially as a teenager, the Hoover would come outside your door, bang you on it to try and wake you up. And it was really hard. And lazy wasn't allowed, because that's how it was termed. It wasn't rest and recovery, it was lazy. And it was also the tradition at the weekend, because my dad worked really, really hard during the week, that after lunch, he would always go and take himself off for a quick half hour. That's what he'd call it. But it was his half-hour nap. So it was like that, it was scheduled in rest and recovery. But then as soon as that was over, it was off to, go to the gym, or we're going for a walk, or we're getting into action again. So it was sleep rest as opposed to actual rest. And I think it was during COVID that I actually gave myself permission to truly rest and recover and just sit in the garden and notice the flowers, listening to the birds, or reading a book, or even binge watching a series or some movies without feeling ashamed that I was doing it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I'm really excited to explore the idea of rest and recovery versus being lazy. So at that point, I'm going to bring in Karen. Just tell me, did you manage to rest and recover over the weekend?
I certainly did. I had a lovely siesta. It's making me laugh because I've got two examples of it from childhood. So my dad would like try and, in the mornings he'd be coming in saying, "Come on, you've got to get up, you've got to get up." And so his way of getting me out of bed would be to turn the lights on. So it was always a shock to my system. So, and I still have that thing sometimes when I wake up and I think, "Oh my God, I've got to get up." And I'm like, out of bed. And there's no reason for that apart from that was my routine from being, probably around the teenage years. It was probably those times when it was, I needed more sleep. So I'm remembering that. And then I'm also remembering my mum was the other side of the scale. And my mum would be like, "Why don't you have a little nap? Get on the sofa now." And she'd cover me up, and I would go to school and I'd come back, I'd have a siesta after school, honestly. And then I still get a good night's sleep. I need a lot of sleep and I need a lot of rest, even though I've got great energy and I can do a lot. I'm in that spectrum of like introverted, extrovert, extroverted, introvert. I don't know which way. And I know that by the time I get to 8 o'clock at night, I don't want to talk. I need, I need quite quiet times. And if it wasn't for my husband, I would be in bed at 8:30 every single night. And I know that about myself because that's how I lived my life before I met him. And I've always been like that, or I've been out partying until 5 a.m. or whatever, on the other side of it. So for me, rest it's a fundamental part of my life and my day. And I've just come back off a retreat, a leadership retreat, which was incredible. And there was much more spaciousness for being and reconnecting, and we were in nature. So it's like the perfect place really to sort of let go. But I also look back on that and go, we did a lot of work. We did a lot of workshops. We did a lot of connection. We did a lot of conversations. So even in the space of recovery, as human beings, we're on it. There is always some kind of forward going action. And I feel like when we're together in a space, unless we're doing a meditation or a visualization, or there is quiet music and we're journaling, there's stuff happening and we all start talking and we just can't help it. And I'm not here to make that wrong because I think it's a really beautiful thing because we plug into each other. However, for us to access our wisdom, we have to be able to sort of turn all of that off, to come back inside and to go deeper into ourselves and into our body and connect to our different wisdom centers, because it's not just in the head. We have wisdom in our heart, we have wisdom in our wombs, we have wisdom in our voices and in our throats. The whole of our body is giving us different information and messages all the time. But we've desensitized that and we've shut down and we've focused instead on what's happening around us, what are people doing, what are they saying, what's their advice, and we've focused on what we're seeing, and we've kind of shut down our senses as well. Like, we've got 6 senses that are available to us that hold so much wisdom. So for me, when I am in my quiet spaces, that's when the information is coming through, and it feels like it's coming from left field, because it's almost like, well, that's a good idea. It's almost like I'm having this conversation with my wisdom. Something will come up and I'll go, I have to write that down. And I know it because I can sense it. So I'll write it down. And I've got books and books and books of thoughts. Some of them get activated, some just sit in the book because there's too many coming through for me most of the time. And it feels like it's such an important moment when this wisdom starts to rise. So yeah, I feel very much like it's very, very important for us as women, as leaders, as humans, to really think, okay, there's all of this information out here, but what's the information on the inside? What is speaking to me right now? And the deep recovery, we do some of it in our sleep. So we know some of it's taken care of, but we can also be very conscious about it as we go through our day and taking moments to check in, listen to the body. What does the body need? What's coming through from the left field, I would call it, and slow everything down so that we can get very present in ourselves. And that's when the true magic happens, and then we can plug back into others and do all those things that we love to do. But without the inner introspection, I really feel like we're not fully present. And just one last thing to say, I've come back from the retreat. I'm more tired than I was before I went away. I'm also calmer. And I have this deeper well inside me that I can feel. And I don't want to lose that, even though I feel more tired. And I realise, as I was saying to you before, I think I was running off a lot of adrenaline before. So I was less tired. I was very productive. I was on it. I had all these like different things rolling at the same time. I was managing to keep all the balls spinning somehow. I'm juggling them all, and they're all sort of landing in the right places, which is always a nice feeling. However, I don't want to be running from anxiety and adrenaline. I want to be running from a different, deeper place within myself. So for me, that's what recovery is all about. Yeah. What about
So
you?
I have this real awareness about my social battery nowadays. And again, I think I started noticing it around the first symptoms of perimenopause, where being around people for an extended amount of time would make me feel jittery. And I started to wonder, is it social anxiety? What is it? And then obviously with COVID and the lockdown, you were actually forced to be quite silent and to be detached from people. And that was really unhealthy for me. I need people in my life, but I also get really exhausted by too many people. And so what I started to realize that I was in a pattern of was that because I need people, I would sit and, we were all so excited to be back in society after the lockdown that there seemed to be a gathering or a party or everybody was trying to do things together. And I would say yes to all of them. And, the only way I'd be able to sustain myself was to turn to alcohol, really, because it was like, I've got to power through it.
Yeah.
And over the last 2 or 3 years, I rarely drink now. And I'm really comfortable with saying no to social activities that I don't want to go to. Also, I notice when my social battery is being drained. So I then say, actually, I'm going to head off now. I've had my fill, and I've had usually a wonderful time. And, after an hour or two, I need to go. And I notice it a lot with my children as well. They are the same. And so often we'll get in the car and come back from whatever event it's been, and we'll sing or chat in the car. And then as soon as we come in, we'll say, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to your room for a bit? Do you need some time out? And we literally have maybe half an hour where we don't talk to anybody and we just are with ourselves, just to restore the energy. Because of course, when you're with other people, your vibrations all like, your energy all gets all busy and fizzy, and you just can't sustain on that. And so, yeah, there's that just like, oh, and it might be that I just sit on the sofa and watch some TV or look at my phone or do a bit of crochet, potter in the garden, whatever it is, I just need to do it alone. And that restores me. And yeah, so this is new for me because I've always been the bouncy Tigger that just says yes to everything. But yeah, just physically and emotionally, I just can't do it. I don't want to do it anymore.
No, I'm with you on that. And I even said to my husband last night, he was chitter chattering. He was just literally like, we came down, been watching Succession on the TV. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's all full of intrigue and drama, and there's a lot of backstabbing that's going on, and it's like this family that are so incredibly toxic, all trying to sort of undercut each other. And it's actually, when you watch it, you're like, my tension in my body is quite extreme, so it's obviously not good for me. However, it's that human condition, and watching something unfold is quite addictive. So we watch it every now and then, and we put it on last night, and he just did not stop talking, like all the way through. He's talking, and I said to him, "There's nothing left inside me," like that. He just looked at me, and he still kept talking, and I was like, "I have nothing to give," and he still kept talking, and then I was like, I love you though. I was like, I love him because he just couldn't help himself. He was like on a high, and I was like in this like very sort of, melodramatic internal space. And then I said to him, I think it's perimenopause. And he just looked at me, and then I said, and I'm going to bed. So off I went to bed. And in the evenings, my anxiety can rise before bed. And I know that about myself. And I have this window. And like I say, I always stay up a bit later to spend time with him. But I said to him this morning, I was like, it's really hard for me in the evenings. I just can't, I can't talk. I can't describe how I feel. I know I'm staying up way later than I should for my body. And perimenopause doesn't help. And, the anxiety and the overthinking starts to kick in. And it's such an internal place. And I need to switch off. And the only way I can do it is to go upstairs. I do like a releasing body ritual that releases everything from my body. Sometimes I'll do some tapping. I do a lot of like deep breaths, and then I'll sort of go to bed and sleep. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm like happy as Larry, like I'm back to me. And this morning I said to him, I love you so much. sometimes I just can't talk. And he gets it. He gets it. So, I feel like there's a space as well for us to be very, very clear about our needs and to know that when our body is saying, I don't want to talk, there's nothing available here. It's okay to say that out loud, with the people who know you and trust you and love you. And it's okay to take yourself away and do what you need. And then it's also okay to talk about it. So for me, like the deep permission that you said, like, it's almost like giving ourselves permission to say, I don't want to talk. You can keep talking if you want, but I can't give them anything back. And it's okay to go to bed early, and it's okay to say no, I'm not going to that, because I just know before I go that it's not going to serve me in any way, shape, or form, because I'm tired, and it's not personal. And when we sort of start to listen to our bodies in that way, I feel like we can also access the higher level information that comes through without giving that a class or this is high, this is low. When we get very truthful within ourselves, so we listen to our body's natural wisdom that's like, tired, need to eat, need to sleep. I'm talking basics here. Need to go to the toilet, need to close my eyes, need to take some deep breaths. When we start listening to those very basic prompts, our body goes, oh, you're listening to me. And then we start to
Most
get bigger
people aren't
things.
listening.
Exactly. And it's so important, because when we're not listening to our bodies in the small things, when the big occasions happen in our lives, the good and the bad, we can be disconnected. So something wonderful is happening. Like it's Mother's Day is today for both of us. And I was able to stay very present with what was going on and also take time for myself and do some resting as well. And it just felt wonderful. Maybe that's why I was more tired, because I was more present. There was that side of it. But then also if there's a danger outside, there's a danger on the street, or we're traveling somewhere and we don't feel safe and we've not listened to the basics, we're not going to listen to those signals either. So then we're in danger. So for me, it's like we have been given these beautiful bodies for so many reasons. And one of them is to listen, to sort of take care of our own needs. What's coming up for you?
Yeah, I was thinking about myself in my 20s, well, and early 30s. So I had got the career, and I got quite a lot of balance with that. I was quite good with my boundaries about what time I was finishing, because I'd got a young family. But equally, I would tend to be in the office for 7, half 7 in the morning, so that I could finish around half 3, 4, and then spend some good 2 or 3 hours with my children. And we would always do something which was about being present. So we'd go and walk down the canal or feed the ducks or play in the garden, whatever the thing was. It wasn't just coming in and, oh, I've got too much to do, I've got to cook. And then we would actually cook together, so whether it was them sat in a bumbo or, they were in the kitchen as we were doing these things. We were always together. But I don't remember ever really just resting, just sitting and being. We were always active in our being together. And equally, because I was so often so busy with the kids doing this, that, and the other, I have lots of memories with my ex-husband. He loved sport and he loved I think it was PlayStation. He had gaming. That was his release of his downtime. But I would come down after putting the kids to bed, or, because I breastfed, so therefore it was only me that could do that job. And I'd come down and he was so absorbed in his thing that I then would just take myself off and run a bath and I would do my thing. And it's just that awareness of, because we were both always on,
Yeah.
there was never actually any being together, just as us in our relationship. We were just, yeah, almost numbing or too busy. And so I think that's something that is really powerful that I've learned. The minute you stop with your rest and recovery and do it purposefully, you actually disconnect not only from yourselves, but you disconnect from the people who are the most important people. And as a leader, you do that with your team. You disconnect from your team.
Yeah.
And, people talk about disengagement. That is a symptom of it. Leaders not slowing down, always being on, always keeping people busy, pushing and driving. It's just not sustainable. It just disconnects us all.
Absolutely.
That's where my mind went.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can go from one role to the next role to the next role to the next role. And before we know it, that role's complete, and then we've got another role coming in. And that is the danger, I think, because I used to feel it really strongly, because I am someone who is quite a deep person, And if I'm going to understand, I want to understand things. If I'm going to understand it, I have to go deeply in. And it can't just be an intellectual understanding for me, because that, I know it in my head. I get that. And I understand that in my head, but I don't know it inside my body. I don't feel it in my body. And therefore I'm disconnected. And I've always had that. And I don't know why or how, but it's always been that search of like a deeper understanding from within my body, and a feeling of something that comes from in my body, not from in my head, that I can then connect my head into, to then create things and make them happen. And I've done that all the way through my life, and especially in my corporate jobs. It was like, I've got a feeling for something's happening, there's a movement. Sometimes it can be nerves, even like it's excitement, and I'll start to get sweaty hands. I know there's movement. I'm like, whoa. And I used to be so embarrassed about it, because it's so physical in me, that I would almost be thinking, oh my God, I'm getting these feelings are coming over, and I've been in a meeting and my hands are start sweating. I'm thinking, oh my God, please don't notice how hot I'm getting. And I start to get a bit fidgety in my body. And it's because there's a movement, something's happening. And I had to learn to channel that. And now I'm older, I can channel it. And now I'm almost like, I get that uncomfortable feeling. It doesn't feel very nice at the beginning sometimes, or like my body starts to speak. Especially when I'm doing my coaching work, I'll be feeling what the other person's feeling, and I'll name it, and I'll say, oh, there's something in my throat. Is that mine or yours? And they'll be like, I've got it too. And that's when we then go into the throat area and we start to unpack that. It's like, what does the throat want to say? And so for me, this is very, very physical. It's not like cold. There's a movement happening on the inside, even if I'm still. And I've learned to just go with that, because that's how I pick things up. And I think the sadness comes for me in all the years that I tried to suppress it and ignore
Well, for
it.
me, it wasn't suppressing, I was a reactor. So I'd get these feelings coming up and I'd just react, and I wouldn't take that pause to say, what does this mean? What's the deeper awareness of what's trying to come? But I'm getting a feeling, I've got this energy moving, so I'm going to move even quicker. And
Yeah.
so I think both of us have been on this journey, haven't we? About this deepening awareness of, what are we sensing? What does it mean? What are we going to do with that?
And holding it so that it can, move through. Because if we move too quickly, we don't really know what we're moving from, to be honest. You know what I
And
mean?
you're just pushing it out there onto other people then.
And the thing with intuition, which is what I learned through CTI so beautifully, is that you've got a room full of people, and you've got people at the front of the room doing a training with you, and they want to get you into your body fundamentally. It's always like, get people into their body, get them into their body, because that's when things open up, the space changes. So everyone's going into their bodies. They're all having their own experience of that. I like this, I don't like this, I'm bored. All of these things can be going off in every single, different people's bodies. But there is a feeling around that is in the field of the intuition. Rumi talks about this, I'll meet you in the field. And that is where it's happening. And so when I was doing my training, I'd start feeling stuff before it was going to happen. And I'd as in quite a way ahead. And so I would say to somebody sitting next to me, something's coming that we're not going to like. I've got a really strong feeling. It's all very nice and peaceful, and everybody's like, opening up. And then, the next exercise we do an hour down the line, we get a big shock. And then everyone goes into their triggers, and that's when we get the learning. But I could sense it was coming, because I was picking it up from the field. But I didn't understand that at the time. I just got these strong sensations. And then I started to learn how to, I was like, oh, I'm picking things up. There's a wisdom around me that's from the leaders, that something else is coming and they're preparing us. I am ahead of the game on that one. So it's a real skill. But there's also this thing about learning to, I just have to name it. There is uncomfortableness coming, and or whatever it might be. So that, because if I don't name what I'm feeling or what I'm picking up on, it gets lost, but I'm still left in the uncomfortable feelings of going,
Yeah.
the one's really peaceful, but why do I feel so deeply uncomfortable? Now, I may be picking up wrongly. That is a possibility. But most of the time, I would say I'm not.
And you know what? That for me, I have all my senses, and I'm really attuned to reading the Yeah, reading the words that aren't being said, or just reading the vibe. And, everybody can do, well, I assume everybody can do this, that you can walk in a room and you can just notice the atmosphere of the room. Maybe somebody's had an argument before you've walked in and you can feel the energy in the air. And I'm really, really good at picking that up and then just adjusting myself based on whatever is there. I can walk into a room and I know whether my child is happy or sad,
Yeah.
even if they're just sat there. And I think we're all attuned to it, but most people don't stop to really nurture that. And it's almost for you, it's almost like a premonition. You can see what's coming ahead, whereas I'm really good at seeing what's here now. What are we speaking to? And each one of us, like you say, the six senses, each one of us will have something, whether you smell, taste, hear something, whether.
Deep knowing, the deep for me,
Yes.
the piece that I am, I've learned to trust, that I feel is a superpower, is that deep, intuitive, instinctual knowing that we all have, that we just know something. And it shows up in many different ways, even from like, I'm thinking about somebody and they're thinking about me at the same time, so you become telepathic.
And my intuition tells me that this is a great place to end this episode. We will be carrying on the conversation next week, but until then, please like, share, comment, and help us share the message that wisdom really does matter, and we all need to practice connecting to it. So thanks for listening, and we can't wait to welcome you next time.
Until then, use your voice, journal, speak, or sing out loud. However you do it, we hope you join us in
Saying It Sister.